Welcome back, everybody, to Niners Now. I'm your host, Brady Grustas, at GrustasBrady on X. You can follow me there. And it is Victory Monday for the third time this year. 3-0 feels great, I gotta tell you. The Niners, of course, beat the Arizona Cardinals on a game-winning field goal on Sunday and are now in first place in the NFC West. We're going to go over all the good, the bad, and the ugly from Week 3 today. But before we begin, go ahead and subscribe down below. Leave a like, leave a comment, and let's get into it. Folks, I gotta say, I feel a strong sense of deja vu right now. For the third week in a row, the 49ers have won a one-score, gritty, defensive game. This is really starting to become an identity for this version of the 49ers. Call them the cardiac Niners, if you will. They really make you sweat in those late-game situations. Despite all the injuries, they've been able to scrap out 3 straight wins, even in these close, sort of ticky-tack, razor-thin margin type of games. The Niners, of course, are now in sole possession of the NFC West lead. They picked up their second divisional victory this week, already surpassing last year's total of 1. So you love to see that. The other 3 teams in the NFC West are now 2-1, though. So the Niners cannot afford to take their foot off the gas. The Rams blew an absurd 26-7 lead to the Eagles and lost on a walk-off blocked field goal. I'm no fan of the Eagles, don't get me wrong, but I laughed out loud when I saw the Rams lose that way. That was hilarious. The Cardinals, of course, are 2-1, having lost to the Niners in Week 3, and Seattle improved to 2-1 after beating the brakes off the Saints. Looks like those Saints were, back to their old ways of just looking terrible out there. In total, the NFC West has 3 losses on the season, 1 for Seattle, 1 for Arizona, and 1 for the Rams. And the 49ers are responsible for 2 of those losses, so that's pretty cool. This is going to be a tight division, though, and the Niners absolutely needed this win to stay afloat with all the injuries that they've been dealing with. Brock Purdy and Demarcus Robinson should, in theory, be ready to go for next week, but, it's still a tough road. Let's not look too far ahead, though. Let's go over some of the grades for each phase of the 49ers this week. And let's start by talking about the offense, all right? It only took 16 points to beat Arizona this week, 3 field goals and a touchdown. And I gotta say, Mac Jones looks so comfortable in those 2-minute situations. Whether that's, due to Kyle Shanahan's play calling or it's the tempo that's keeping him composed or whatever, this really is Mac's strength to me. Right before the half, and of course the last drive of the game, Mac just turns into a different guy when there's not much time left. Does that make him clutch? I don't know if I'm ready to go there just yet, but the Niners would not have been in a position to win without some really solid clock management from both Mac and Kyle Shanahan. And if you look at the, game-winning drive at the end of the fourth quarter, it started on that very first pass. Mac was pressured, had a blitz coming off of his blind side, but he got the ball out quickly and avoided an intentional grounding. That was a huge play to stay on schedule. And then later in that drive, too, he threw the ball away again when he knew that there just weren't any good options on that pass play. That second throwaway, I don't believe he was pressured. I'm pretty sure the pocket was pretty clean. But he saw that all his guys were covered. He said, you know what, let's live to fight another down. And that was smart. These are these little plays that make such a huge difference when the game is this close. And aside from the throwaways, he was also accurate and played on time for the most part. I mean, obviously he was not perfect, right? He had that bad miss for the interception where the safety just read Ricky's route the entire way, jumped in front of the pass. But Mac threw the best pass of this season so far for the Niners when he dropped that absolute beauty to Ricky Pearsall to set up the touchdown. I'll say this, Mac is pretty much the ideal backup quarterback. I'd much rather have Mac Jones than some of these other backups in the league, right? Jake Browning, he was horrendous on Sunday. The Bengals season is absolutely toast without Burrow. But the 49ers don't have that problem because Mac did what was asked of him. Come in, get 2 wins, and don't screw up too badly. And he didn't. Brock Purdy should be back next week, and the offense will look a little bit better as a result, but the Niners have got to figure out the run game. Christian McCaffrey has not been efficient at all so far this year. only 3.1 yards per carry today. Now, luckily, he's been fantastic through the air and has been really affecting the game that way. He caught 10 passes for 88 yards on Sunday. But overall, the Niners are bottom 5 in the NFL in yards per carry as a team. If this offense is going to elevate to the next level, they're really going to have to be more efficient on the ground. But for now, they've been able to stay afloat thanks to CMC and Ricky Pearsall. Speaking of Ricky, he's currently third in the NFL in receiving yards through 3 weeks. The breakout is officially here for Pearsall. And let it be known, I've been a Pearsall guy from day one. I have wanted Ricky Pearsall on the 49ers since early April of 2024. That's pre-draft, mind you, pre-draft. I've been a huge Ricky guy for a long time, and it's so cool to see him balling out for my favorite team, and of course yours too. Ricky had maybe the best catch of his career on Sunday in the fourth quarter on 4th down. That beauty from Mac caught it right on the shoulder and kind of on the helmet like this. It was just unreal. What a monster he is. And I thought Kendrick Bourne, too, by the way, had a couple of big catches. Feels like he's getting more and more comfortable in the offense. And of course, Christian McCaffrey's been phenomenal as a pass catcher as well. The passing game has really carried the offense so far. But with tough defenses like the Rams and the Texans coming up, the run game's going to have to start delivering. I think a lot of that falls on the blocking. Connor Colby looked like he was pretty clearly in pain today. He was not 100%, you could certainly tell. Dominic Pooney doesn't seem to be 100% either, but you know what? Injuries are no excuse anymore. If you're out there on the field, you've got to play better than the 49ers O-line has so far. In total, I think I'd give the offense around a B. There have been some real standouts, and they've done enough to keep the Niners in games, but I'd like to see some more consistency, especially with starters like Brock Purdy and DeMarcus Robinson returning next week. Now, let's talk about the defense. Robert Saleh, you have worked miracles on me, man. The difference between a Saleh defense and a Nick Sorensen defense is unbelievable. The D was not perfect today. Certainly not perfect, right? But you can just tell the defense is the backbone of this team. Kyler Murray and James Conner are so slippery and so tough to bring down, and you could really see that on Sunday. I felt like every single time that either of them ran the ball, they broke 2 tackles. The tackling was an issue this week, right? Nearly unanimously, kind of across the board, there were tackling issues, especially early in the game, I thought. James Conner just would not go down on first or second contact. And Kyler was able to break contain, multiple times, right? Sometimes the D-line would just be in poor position and they just misplayed the pocket, but sometimes they would be playing it correctly, but Murray would just have too much speed, get to the corner, and pick up a cheeky 8 or 9 yards. It's ridiculous, man. He's a good player, and he's got great legs. He was pretty efficient today all around, but did not do enough to get the win. And, sometimes they're just going to get their plays in, right? But if there is an area to improve for the defense in this game, it would have to be the tackling, right? Got to wrap up better, especially for a guy like Marquise Siegel. He really stood out to me as someone who missed a few of those tackles. But on the flip side, the mental makeup of this defense is phenomenal. It felt like there were so many drives where the Cardinals were just moving the ball over and over and converting third downs and converting third downs and converting third downs, and the Niners would bend and they would bend, but they wouldn't quite break. The Niners, of course, did allow the one touchdown to, who was it? It was Trey McBride. Yes, it was Trey McBride. Forgot the tight end's name. This shows how much I know. Yeah, Trey McBride had the nice touchdown in the end zone. Of course, they did break on that drive, but I was really impressed with their ability to stay resilient and stay strong throughout the entirety of the game, if you're honest. And this is a really young unit, right? You might not expect that level of composure and that level of clutch play from a defense that's starting, or getting contributions from 4 or 5 rookies and second-year players. It's pretty impressive, especially without Nick Bosa for much of this game. And I've got to shout out in particular Upton Stout. If you remember this play, this big Upton Stout play, the Cardinals were running out the clock after the Mac Jones safety, which, by the way, that safety was total BS. The holding penalty, that occurred before Pooney was in the end zone, so that should not have been a safety. And then they called that one, but not the Kyler Murray one earlier. It was ridiculous. Back on track, though. I thought the game was over after that safety. The Cardinals were moving the ball, they were bleeding the clock, but on 3rd and 9, they elected to throw it to Zay Jones on a crosser, covered, of course, by Upton Stout. And that play felt like slow motion. Watching Stout go down with Jones, not seeing the football. I thought it was over. I thought they had converted. They would just be able to kneel out the clock until the last second where that ball pops out of Jones's hands and the announcer roars, "Incomplete!" That got me so fired up. If Stout didn't make that play, the Niners lose this football game easily. Because that's the exact type of play that the Niners defense would have given up last year. But Stout, and don't get me wrong, he's had a really up and down year, right? But he came up huge on this play. He gave the offense a chance to win it. And we saw some big plays from all the young guys in this one, or pretty much all of them, I should say. Michael Williams had a run stop on 3rd and short right around midfield where he just split a double team like it was nothing, and he threw the running back to the ground. It was a grown man play from a 21-year-old. His strength was really on display. And we saw some flashes from Alfred Collins and CJ West as well. Both of those two, and Michael Williams actually, got to hit Kyler Murray on that intentional grounding play that, of course, should have been a safety. Now, obviously, you'd like to see the 3 of those guys actually bring down Murray and not let him get the throw off, but all 3 of those guys were able to get a hand on Murray in the end zone, which is pretty impressive as well. This young defensive line is starting to get more and more confident, and at just the right time, too. Unfortunately, it does seem like Renardo Green's terrible year 2 has continued. He single-handedly gave the Cardinals a touchdown by panicking and committing pass interference in the end zone. He was just such a momentum killer, and then he also got hurt in this one. I'm hoping Renardo's all right, but he's probably been the defense's worst starter so far this year. But I do want to shout out also Bryce Huff, who ended the first half with a sack on Kyler Murray, and who really stepped up without Nick Bosa out there for most of the game. Huff is going to be a crucial part of the defense this year, and he's already off to a great start, but that success has to continue while the rest of the D-line keeps improving. Overall, I'm going to give this defense a B+. Now, we got to talk about the special teams too, and primarily my new favorite kicker in the entire world, Eddie Pinheiro. When he stepped up to kick that game winner, every single Jake Moody miss flashed before my eyes at once. And I'm not even joking. This really happened. The one that stood out most to me, the potential game winner against Cleveland in 2023. I believe the final score of that game was like 19-17 or something. Moody had a nice, easy, makeable field goal. Absolutely shanked it. Niners would drop. I believe that was the second in their 3-game loss streak. Just brutal. And that's all I could think about when Pinheiro was stepping up to make that kick. I could see it. I could see that miss, and I could see all of them. I could see the ball missing, and I could preemptively feel that same pain that I felt so many times before when Jake Moody would miss field goals. I could feel that pain already. My body was already expecting a missed game-winning field goal, but Pinheiro absolutely drilled it right down the middle, no doubter. He has been exactly as advertised so far for the 49ers, and it's really healing to me. I'm so grateful that finally the team moved on from Jake Moody and picked up a guy like Eddie P. He scored a majority of the points for the Niners today. There was only 1 touchdown from the 49ers offense. And once again, he outkicked the opposing team's kicker. Chad Ryland, the kicker for Arizona, had a miss on the very first drive of the game, and Pinheiro was perfect. We finally have a real kicker again, people. And Pinheiro even hit a kick from 51 yards. That's not even his game, right? His whole thing is being automatic from under 50, but he did hit a 51-yarder on Sunday. And I loved watching Pinheiro get nice and fired up after making the game winner and the celebrations and trash talking the Arizona sideline. I loved it, man. Now, while I would give Eddie an A+, he is not the only member of the special teams unit. Sky Moore at returner had a couple of nice plays on special teams, but he did have one really baffling one. In the fourth quarter, Moore called for a fair catch on a punt at the Niners' 6-yard line. That drive eventually led to a Mac Jones safety and 2 points for the Cardinals. If Moore had brought that ball out even 5 yards, the Niners might not have given up those 2 points. It was a mental lapse that was really worrying in the moment. I was not happy about it. And of course, slightly less worrying after the 49ers pulled off the comeback victory. But overall, I will give the special teams an A-. If you look at the 2 grids that I've given the special teams, pretty sure that in week 1, I gave them an F. In week 2, I gave them an A. And in week 3, I'm giving them an A-. So, what's the common denominator there? Looks like Eddie P is really helping out this special teams unit. Now, let's talk about some of the injuries that happened in this game. Both the Niners and Cardinals were playing physical, violent football, and that cost both teams in this one. Juwan Jennings didn't play at all, neither did Brock Purdy, of course, but the Cardinals were missing Will Johnson at corner, and notably also missing their star left tackle, Paris Johnson Jr., who was a late addition to the injury report last week. And of course, during the game, running back James Conner suffered a season-ending injury. You hate to see that for anyone, especially for a player as good as James Conner. And of course, the Niners did lose their star edge rusher, Nick Bosa, in this one. Bosa was ruled out of the game very quickly after he got hurt with a knee injury, and usually that indicates it's going to be a multi-week issue. You remember back in week 1, George Kittle was taken out of the game and very quickly ruled out. It was later revealed that he was going to be out for multiple weeks. I think it's a similar thing happening with Nick Bosa. And at this point, I'm just hoping that it's not an ACL tear, because this defense is so much better with Bosa out on that field. If he can return at all this year, I think the 49ers should consider themselves lucky. Kyle Shanahan said that they haven't ruled anything out yet as of Sunday's press conference, so we'll wait to hear more today, Monday, when you guys are seeing this, and of course, later on throughout the week. The injury train just, keeps on running over the 49ers. They also lost Renardo Green in this game, though I'm not quite sure what his injury designation is. And Mac Jones also re-aggravated a PCL sprain that had been bothering him earlier in the year in training camp. And you could see him limping around towards the end of this one, but credit to Mac. He battled through it, led a game-winning drive with that PCL injury. Injuries are still beating the Niners senseless, right? But through it all, they are 3-0. This is way more adversity than anyone could have imagined when looking at the Niners, quote-unquote, easy schedule back in August. The Niners are committed to winning gritty and dragging other teams down to their level of play and finding ways to win. That is the number one difference between this year's Niners and last year's Niners. They find ways to win. There's teams in this league that find ways to lose, and Arizona is one of them. But the Niners find ways to win. And that is a huge sign that this team, they might be scary once they get healthy. That's going to be the theme of the year for the 49ers. I can already tell, finding ways to win. So that is all for this episode. Who were your top standouts from the 49ers in week 3? And do you think the 49ers will stay undefeated next week against the Jaguars? Let me know down below, and let me know if you enjoyed. Leave a comment, leave a like, and let me know if there's any topics that you'd like to see me cover. Thank you all for watching, and subscribe for 49ers videos 5 days a week. I'm Brady Grustas at Grustas Brady on X. This has been Niners Now, and I'll see you tomorrow.